Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the program. I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines, tensions rise in the South China Sea as new China Coast Guard rules take effect today. These rules allow officers to detain foreigners in disputed areas for up to 60 days without trial. Meanwhile, Japan braces for severe weather as torrential downpours continue to batter parts of Okinawa. On the war front, Ukrainian President Zelensky rejects Russia's demands for surrender and abandonment of NATO aspirations, calling them an ultimatum reminiscent of Hitler's tactics. Catherine, Princess of Wales, marks a significant milestone today with her tentative return to public life at the Trooping the Colour military parade in London. This is her first public appearance since her cancer diagnosis. And we'll return with a closer look at China's innovative approach to elder care. First up, the Philippines filed a claim with the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, or CLCS, to extend its control over the seabed and potential resources in the West Philippine Sea. And this move goes beyond the standard 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone limit allowed by the international law. Here's a breakdown with some additional details. Resource potential. The seabed in the West Philippine Sea may hold significant resources like oil, gas, and minerals, and this claim could give the Philippines exclusive rights to explore and exploit these resources for future generations. The Philippines emphasizes this claim strengthen its legal position under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. UNCLOS is a widely accepted international treaty governing maritime affairs, including rights and responsibilities of coastal states. The Department of Foreign Affairs clarifies that the submission doesn't prejudice discussions with other coastal states that might have overlapping claims based on UNCLOS, and this could pave the way for future negotiations on resource sharing or delimitation of maritime boundaries. This is the Philippines' second ECS claim. In 2009, it successfully secured rights over the Philippine rice, gaining an additional 135,506 square kilometers of seabed area. The filing comes amidst ongoing tensions in the region, particularly with China, which has its own maritime claims in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines hopes this submission will reinvigorate efforts for a rules-based international order, where disputes are settled through UNCLOS processes and not through force. Now, new China Coast Guard rules taking effect today will allow officers to detain foreigners in disputed areas of the South China Sea for up to 60 days without trial. And foreign ships that have illegally entered China's territorial waters and the adjacent waters may be detained in accordance with the law with the approval of the head of a Coast Guard agency at or above the Municipal Coast Guard Agency. The new policy announced in May follows a Philippine civilian mission delivering aid to Filipino fishermen in Bao de Masinloc, well within their exclusive economic zone. Detention periods could last up to 30 days. The Philippines is mobilizing its Navy and other agencies to safeguard its citizens. Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad, Navy spokesman, emphasizes this is a broader concern for Southeast Asia and the international community. President Marcos Jr. described the new policy as unacceptable and said he will take whatever measures to always protect our citizens. Former Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said in May that the new regulations were intended to standardize the administrative law enforcement procedures of Coast Guard agencies and better uphold order at sea. He said individuals and entities have no need for concern as long as they have not done anything illicit.
Will be the start of the announced enforcement of a new rule, municipal law of China, that empowers their China Coast Guard to arrest and detain what they considered as trespassers in waters that they claim. So this may likely include waters belonging to the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone, west of Luzon and west of Palawan in the West Philippine Sea. So, of course, for local fisher folk who go to these areas to access these rich traditional fishing grounds for their livelihood, it's a source of concern. And in response to that, as reported earlier, Philippines had deployed more assets, ships, to be able to patrol these areas to uh, maybe provide assurance and support to our fishermen who operates in these areas to ensure that they will be able to continue to peaceably do about with their fishing, not worrying about potential adverse consequences with this new announced measure from China.
Now, beyond the specific actions outlined in your article, what other strategies could the Philippines consider to strengthen its position in the West Philippine Sea?
So certainly the deterrence and defense aspect are already there, but I think the diplomacy and dialogue also has to be upped in terms of the West Philippine Sea. Of course, other coastal states also employ various strategies to deal with China. You know, the biggest claimant, the biggest neighbor, and also the largest trade partner for uh, the whole region of Southeast Asia. And so it's important for the Philippines to maintain robust economic relations with Beijing, but at the same time send a strong signal that it would undertake necessary measures to defend its maritime interests, but leaving the door open for dialogue, but on the basis of course, international law, and of course, the desire to maintain peace and stability that benefits everyone in the region.
In other news in the region, Thailand's thwarted election winner Pita Limjaroenrat said he is confident of winning a court case that could see his party dissolved over its pledge to reform the kingdom's tough royal insult laws. Pita's Reformist Move Forward Party, or MFP, won most seats in last year's general election. But conservative senators stopped him becoming prime minister, partly because of the push to change the laws, shielding King Maha Vajiralongkorn from criticism. The kingdom's constitutional court is considering a petition to dissolve MFP, but on Sunday, Pita outlined the party's 9-point defense, saying he believed the case would not go against them.
That means an attack on democracy. It's not just me personally, it's not just the party, but it's really about the discussion about democratic space here in Thailand, of having elected officials, the largest opposition party in the country that will be abolished, and that means a lot to check and balance. And the strength of the democracy is not about how robust the government is, but how fair and how active the opposition is. That's really what it means. But with the grain of salt, we are not at that stage yet. We are still fighting tooth and nail to make sure that if it never happens, in this case for the going month, going forward. If there's a rule of law in Thailand, I'm extremely confident with my 9 arguments. Our 9 arguments focuses on the jurisdiction and the process. We focus on the facts, and we focus on the proportionality of law. So from the jurisdiction of a constitutional court to the process, which is the origin of this case, is not according to the rules and procedures and process that was designed by the election committee itself. And also, all the activities or the accusations we can explain. So we're still very confident if there's a rule of law in Thailand.
A fire ripped through pet shops next to Bangkok's famed Chatuchak market early Tuesday, killing caged dogs, cats, birds, and snakes, and damaging more than 100 stalls. The fire is believed to have started in the ornamental fish zone in Srimsrorat market, adjacent to the bigger Chatuchak, around 4 a.m. local time, according to Tivaron Prongseng, a police inspector investigating the case. The blaze spread to more than 100 stalls across about 1,300 square meters. Now, there were no reports of human casualties, but multiple cage animals were found dead at the market, which belongs to the State Railway of Thailand. The fire was extinguished by 6 a.m. and the cause is still being investigated. Local media reported that hundreds of pets had died in the fire, but Tivacorn said it was too early to say how many had perished. The Bangkok Metropolitan Administration has set up a presence at the scene to gather information from affected shop owners. Bangkok Governor Chadchard Senipunt visited the site and said people could help affected shop owners by offering to house surviving animals. Fires have previously damaged sections of the neighboring tightly packed Chatuchak market, which sells everything from antiquities and electronics to dishwares and food. The market is a top tourist draw, but also a popular shopping destination for locals. The Japan Meteorological Agency issued weather warnings after torrential downpours hit parts of Okinawa on June 14th. Social media footage captured by Kariushi 19 shows vehicles navigating flooded streets in Nishihara. Local authorities in Nishihara reported overflowing of the Ohazu River and flooding throughout the town due to the heavy rain. Evacuation orders were issued for Nishihara and surrounding areas, including Nahaseri, Itoman City, Tomigusuku City, and Haibaru Town. The Japan Meteorological Agency confirmed record-breaking rainfall in the vicinity of Tomigusuku City and Itoman City at around 10:30 a.m. on the same day. And world leaders are meeting in Switzerland this weekend for the first ever peace summit on Ukraine. However, there's a key player missing: Russia. And this comes after Russian President Putin demanded Ukraine surrender land and abandon its NATO aspirations in exchange for a ceasefire.
Как только в Киеве заявят о том, что готовы к такому решению и начнут реальный вывод войск из этих регионов, а также официально уведомят об отказе от планов вступления в НАТО, с нашей стороны незамедлительно, буквально в ту же минуту, последует приказ прекратить огонь и начать переговоры. Повторю, мы это сделаем незамедлительно. Естественно, одновременно гарантируем беспрепятственный и безопасный отвод украинских частей и соединений.
Ukrainian President Zelensky called these demands an ultimatum and compared Putin's tactics to Hitler's. NATO and the U.S. also rejected these conditions.
You know, Putin has illegally occupied sovereign Ukrainian territory. He is not in any position to dictate to Ukraine what they must do to bring about a peace.
So this just demonstrates that this is not a proposal made in good faith, but this is a proposal that actually means that Russia should achieve their war aims by also expecting or expecting that Ukraine should give up significantly more land than Russia has been able to occupy so far.
Despite the challenges, Ukraine hopes this summit, alongside the upcoming G7 meeting, will help shift the momentum in their favor. While the summit aims to pave the way for eventual peace talks, including Russia, the current situation remains tense with limited progress on the battlefield. Russian President Putin condemned the freezing of Russian assets abroad, labeling it as theft and warning that it will not go unpunished. This reaction follows the decision by G7 leaders to approve a new $50 billion loan for Ukraine, utilizing profits from frozen Russian assets. U.S. President Joe Biden stated that this move demonstrates to Moscow that the international community is not backing down.
That this week, the G7 signed a plan to finalize and unlock $50 billion from the proceeds of those frozen assets. Put that money to work for Ukraine. Another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down. In fact, we're standing together against this illegal aggression.
Since February 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the G7 and the EU have frozen approximately 300 billion euros of Russian central bank reserves. On Friday, President Putin accused Western countries of attempting to create a legal basis to justify these actions.
Страны Запада заморозили часть российских активов и валютных резервов. Теперь думают над тем, как подвести хоть какую-то юридическую базу, чтобы их окончательно присвоить. Но, несмотря на все крючкотворство, воровство, безусловно, останется воровством. И безнаказанным не останется с другой стороны.
The Russian president also cautioned that the ongoing standoff between Moscow and the West is nearing an unacceptably close to the point of no return. He emphasized that Moscow possesses the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons.
Мы подошли недопустимо близко к точке невозврата. Призывы нанести стратегическое поражение России, обладающей крупнейшим арсеналом ядерного оружия, демонстрируют запредельный авантюризм западных политиков. Они либо не понимают масштаба угрозы, которую сами порождают, либо попросту одержимы верой в собственную безнаказанность и собственную исключительность. И то, и другое может обернуться трагедией.
And throughout the conflict with Ukraine, Putin has frequently referenced nuclear capabilities, framing the conflict as part of a broader hybrid war between Russia and NATO. Additionally, Putin criticized the Ukraine Peace Forum in Switzerland this weekend as a trick to distract everybody. Moscow wasn't invited to the conference, which will be attended by leaders and senior officials from around 90 countries and international organizations.
То, что предлагают устроители встречи в Швейцарии, лишь еще одна уловка, чтобы отвлечь всеобщее внимание, поменять местами причину и следствие украинского кризиса, пустить дискуссию по ложному следу и в какой-то степени обозначить видимость легитимности действующей исполнительной власти на Украине еще раз.
In the United States, the presidential race is heating up. Donald Trump, who was recently convicted, has made a controversial return to Capitol Hill for the first time since the January 6th insurrection, when he encouraged his supporters to attack the Capitol in an effort to overturn the 2020 election results. Trump is now aiming to attract young voters with a new policy proposal. After promising to change federal laws to eliminate taxes, he's advocating for an all-tariff policy to replace income taxes. This idea of reducing tax rates has been a long-standing goal for Trump, reflecting the core of his 2016 economic strategy. Additionally, he plans to increase taxes on Chinese imports by at least 60% if re-elected. During his visit, Trump met with Republican lawmakers and business leaders at the Capitol Hill Club, his first visit in 3 years.
Great meeting. There's tremendous unity in the Republican Party. We want to see borders. We want to see strong military. We want to see money not wasted all over the world. We don't want to see Russian ships right off the coast of Florida, which is what they are right now. That's unthinkable. We want to see just success for our country. And we don't have success right now. We have inflation that's killing everybody. But this is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything. And if there isn't, we work it out. And I've had a really great relationship with just about everybody here, just about all of the senators. And if it wasn't fantastic, it gets worked out. And we have one thing in mind, and that's making our country great.
House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed confidence in the upcoming elections, believing Republicans will gain several seats in November. He also emphasized the party's united effort to tackle the nation's challenges and support Trump's bid.
President Trump brought an extraordinary amount of energy and excitement and enthusiasm this morning. That is what we're seeing in the party throughout the country. Many of us are traveling the country. I do it endlessly. I've been in 29 states and done events in 123 cities, and we go to blue states and swing districts and everywhere in between. And there is something happening in the country. That's the phrase I used to introduce the president this morning, and he repeated the phrase a number of times in his own remarks because he's feeling and seeing that as well. We believe that we're going to win back the White House and the Senate and grow the House majority, and when we do that, we will not waste a moment. We will be working on a very aggressive agenda to fix all the great problems facing this country right now. We talked a little bit about that today with President Trump. We talked about how to grow this House majority and how he will help in doing so. And then how we'll help him as well. And this is a unified effort by the party. We're feeling good. He did talk about his concern about the lawfare that's been waged against him, and we all know it. And I made the point in my introduction of him that it's backfired fantastically on the Democrat Party and the activists who are trying to use our judicial system to exact political vendettas against the primary opponent that they have for the control of the country. And well, we all believe in the sanctity of human life, and everyone has to go to their districts and explain it in their own way. And President Trump encouraged everyone to do that. I think that's important.
However, Democrats have criticized the visit, calling it a moral failure.
It was shameful and a complete embarrassment that my extreme MAGA Republican colleagues decided to welcome the insurrectionist in chief back to the Capitol as a conquering hero, not someone who lied about the 2020 presidential election and incited a violent mob to attack the Capitol in order to halt the peaceful transfer of power. The Republican Party no longer exists in its traditional form. This is the Trump Party. And it's not focused on solving problems for the American people. It is focused singularly on doing the bidding of Donald Trump.
Trump also caused a stir by labeling Milwaukee, Wisconsin as horrible. The city is slated to host the Republican National Convention on July 15, and Wisconsin is a key battleground state. Trump's negative remarks could alienate voters in this pivotal state, potentially increasing the gap between him and the president and President Biden in the polls. With the election drawing near, every vote is critical in this closely contested race. Now, in a closely watched decision, the Supreme Court has struck down the ban on bump stocks devices that allow semi-automatic rifles to fire like machine guns. The ruling issued today comes after a years-long legal battle following a mass shooting in Las Vegas. Bump stocks first emerged in the early 2000s, and their legality remained unclear. However, the horrific Las Vegas shooting in 2017, where the gunman used bump stocks, pushed the issue to the forefront. In response, the Trump administration enacted a ban on these devices in 2018. But that ban faced legal challenges. Gun sellers argued the ATF overstepped its authority by classifying bump stocks as machine guns, a category defined by a 1934 law. Today's 6-3 decision falls along ideological lines, with the conservative majority siding with the gun sellers. Justice Clarence Thomas, writing for the court, said bump stocks, despite increasing fire rate, don't meet the legal definition of a machine gun. The decision is already sparking strong reactions. Gun rights groups praise it, while gun control advocates express outrage.
So a bump fire stock was designed for recreational shooting. It takes the firearm's natural recoil and allows the shooter to shoot more rounds a little faster. It's not designed to make it full auto, it's just designed for people to enjoy outdoor shooting and have a little more fun with it. There's no springs in here, there's no levers. It is simply me applying pressure away from the recoil for the bounce.
President Biden's re-election campaign denounced the court for prioritizing the gun lobby over public safety.
More children are killed in America by guns than cancer and car accidents combined. My predecessor told the NRA convention recently, he's proud that, quote, I did nothing on guns when I was president. And by doing nothing, he made the situation considerably worse. That's why every town, why this summit, why all of you here today are so damn important. We need you. We need you to overcome the unrelenting opposition of the gun lobby, gun manufacturers, so many politicians when they oppose common sense gun legislation.
And this ruling reignites the debate on the gun control and the power of regulatory agencies. Whether Congress will take action on a new ban or further legal challenges emerge remains to be seen. A Canadian patrol ship, the HMCS Margaret Brooke, docked in Havana, Cuba, for a planned port visit. And this coincides with the presence of both a U.S. and Russian nuclear-powered submarine in Cuba. The Canadian Navy emphasized this visit from June 14 to the 17th, strengthens the long-standing relationship between Canada and Cuba. It's their first visit to Havana since 2016. Meanwhile, tensions simmer as both the U.S., the USS Helena, and Russia, the Kazan, have nuclear submarines docked in Cuba. The U.S. maintains theirs is a routine visit, while Russia's arrival comes amidst heightened tensions over the war in Ukraine. The presence of these powerful vessels near the U.S. coast, which is 90 miles off Florida, is a reminder of Cold War anxieties when Cuba was a Soviet ally and the Cuban Missile Crisis nearly escalated to nuclear war. However, the U.S. military assures the Russian ships pose no immediate threat.
So we've been tracking the Russians' plans for this. This is not a surprise. We've seen them do these type of port calls before, and these are routine naval visits that we've seen under different administrations. We're always constantly going to monitor any foreign vessels operating near U.S. territorial waters. We, of course, take it seriously, but these exercises don't pose a threat to the United States.
A tranquil town on Peru's Pacific coast is abuzz with construction of a massive new port. China's state-owned COSCO Shipping is building the $1.3 billion facility expected to launch later this year.
Y al ser un concentrador y poder recibir las naves a plena carga más grandes del mundo, se va a poder convertir en la puerta de ingreso del Asia y la puerta de salida de Sudamérica hacia el Asia.
Chinese President Xi Jinping may even inaugurate it during his first visit to South America since the pandemic. Economic boom, political tension, experts believe the port will significantly boost trade between China and South Africa, potentially making inexpensive Chinese goods more readily available across Latin America. However, the project also raises concerns about growing Chinese influence in the region. American officials worry that China's control of this first major global commercial hub in South America will give them greater leverage over resources and potentially allow them to install military assets. The U.S. cites past Chinese investments in ports around the world as examples of how such projects can lead to increased debt for recipient nations. Now, despite these concerns, Peru welcomes the Chinese investment, seeing it as a boon to its shipping, mining, and electricity sectors. However, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte will be meeting with her Chinese counterpart later this month to discuss potential issues related to Chinese influence over critical infrastructure. President Boluarte is also expected to meet with executives from COSCO Shipping, Chinese telecom giant Huawei, and electric car maker BYD. And these meetings could shed light on future economic and technological partnerships between Peru and China. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa was re-elected for a second term ever after his humbled ANC cobbled together an unprecedented coalition government.
It is my privilege to report to you that after 2 weeks of thorough negotiations that only concluded after today's sitting of Parliament had already started, the DA has reached agreement on the statement of intent for the formation of a government of national unity.
Lawmakers in Cape Town voted overwhelmingly to put Ramaphosa, 71, back in office for another 5 years. Last month's election marked a historic turning point, ending 3 decades of dominance by the African National Congress of the late Nelson Mandela. Ramaphosa will be sworn in next week in Pretoria and then unveil his new cabinet. Thousands of fish have died of drought in the Bustillos Lagoon in northern Mexico as its water level has dropped due to the country's drought. Here's more.
This is what the Bustillos Lagoon looks like these days. Thousands of fish have died and their carcasses are decomposing in the hot sun. Local authorities say the lagoon is 50% below its normal water level, and they say that means pollutants are more concentrated and hazardous to the species that inhabit it. Dead fish started piling up in the lake bed's cracked mud a week ago. A foul smell hangs over the area as workers clean up the decomposing remains amid fears they could spread disease. Mexico as a whole has been battling high temperatures, with a dozen cities, including the capital, breaking heat records. Health authorities say 125 people have died in the current hot season, which started mid-March. Percival Parlade, NET25, World News.
Catherine, Princess of Wales, on Saturday makes a tentative return to public life for the first time since being diagnosed with cancer, attending the Trooping the Colour military parade in central London. Kate, as she is widely known, has not been seen at the public engagement since December 25 in last year and revealed in March that she was receiving chemotherapy. With the 42-year-old princess, one of the world's most photographed women, her protracted absence has fueled speculation, particularly online, about her health and whereabouts. In a lengthy social media post on Friday evening, she said she was making good progress with her treatment, which she added is set to last for several more months. She said she's looking forward to attending the King's birthday parade this weekend with the family and hope to join a new public engagements over the summer. But equally knowing, I am not out of the woods yet, said the princess. Kate's emotional announcement that she had cancer came just weeks after it was disclosed that her father-in-law, King Charles III, had also been diagnosed with the condition. Neither has revealed what type of cancer they have. And joining us now is Thomas I. Likeness, correspondent at large with news and commentaries from around the globe. Up first, we'll meet the daring hurricane hunters who risk their lives to gather data on these powerful storms. And then we'll travel to Iraq, where uncontrolled gunfire is a major problem. We'll also see a sad story from Chile about a deadly attack on a zoo by wild dogs. And to end on a lighter note, we'll meet a parade of goslings on their way to a new pond in Edmonton, Canada. Thomas.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. You might call these guys those magnificent men in their flying machines. They're hurricane hunters, and they work for the U.S. government, helping to improve forecasting for those potentially dangerous storms. Every year, two NOAA turboprop Orion aircraft crisscross the North Atlantic and fly into the storms. Kevin Doremus is one of those daredevil pilots, and he says, this is not like flying for an airline.
Usually you're trying to get away from it in a commercial airliner. We choose to go right through it, and we have to because that's where the science needs us to be.
Doremus has been at it for 6 years, says he still gets nervous, and, he says if you're not nervous, you shouldn't be doing this. So, Kevin, what's the ride like through a hurricane?
The best analogy that we like to use is like riding an old wooden roller coaster through a car wash. It's kind of that rickety, bouncy feeling, and then when you're on a roller coaster, you kind of hit the top and your stomach kind of comes up a little bit, and then you hit the bottom, and then you kind of sink into your seat. It's a lot of that.
These planes are loaded with high-tech meteorological instruments.
On the bottom of the sensor right here, you have the ability to send back information to the airplane, such as temperature, pressure, humidity, dew point, and GPS-derived wind speed. There's a parachute that comes out the top right here, and it gets launched out of this tube on the aircraft by the person we call our AVAPS operator.
They have a crew of up to 12 people. Now, this crew includes pilots, engineers, flight directors, and scientists. The flights last 8 to 10 hours. Doremus says the planes contain bunks, but he says, it's hard to nap in a hurricane. Iraq has a problem with guns in civilian hands. Seems people are using them to celebrate or settle disputes. A lot of the gunshot wound victims are innocent people caught in the crossfire. 59-year-old Saad Abbas, you see him here on the screen. Well, he was in his garden one day when a stray bullet hit him. Came from a nearby wedding. Abbas says people are crazy. He says they fire shots in the air when a team wins. At weddings, he says, everyone fires shots in the air. Abbas says angels don't catch the bullets. They fall on people and animals. A government spokesman says in tribal and rural areas, minor feuds break out and they're often settled with firearms. As well, armed groups, smugglers, and other criminal operations contribute to the problem. A couple of animal stories now. This first one is sad. In Chile, a pack of wild dogs launched an attack on a zoo. The attack left 23 animals dead, 21 deer and 2 peacocks. Authorities say the feral canines burrowed under the fences of the animals' cages during the night and then killed them. The zoo has close to 550 animals. And on a brighter note, I want to show you this. What you're going to see here took place one morning a couple of days ago, about 2 blocks from where I live in Edmonton, Canada. This army of geese, there's only a couple of adult birds in the group, the rest are goslings. Well, this flock is walking about 1 kilometer from one storm drainage pond to another. And to reach their destination, they march through this residential neighborhood. The goslings are only about 1.5 months old. They can't fly yet. So they march in a straight line, following the adult leading them. Another full-grown bird marches behind the flock. Now, when you see this, you want to stay well back. You see, adult geese will aggressively defend their young, and these birds are vicious when they're provoked. Oh, incidentally, this happens every year in this neighborhood, and, it's kind of cool to watch. I'll be back in 7 days. Until then, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas I. Likeness, correspondent at large, NET25 World News.
Finally, in our news, China's population is aging rapidly. And with the shrinking workforce, the country is looking for innovative solutions to care for its growing elderly population. China's elder care industry is embracing automation in a big way. And we're talking internet-connected sleep monitors, robotic arms, and even calorie-counting cafeteria plates. Jin Go-wei from a tech firm in Shenzhen says these devices not only save on labor costs for care facilities, but they also provide more accurate data.
首先从机构出发的话，他们是为了省人力嘛，因为每天晚上或者是每天时间嘛，他都需要去巡逻，而且是安排人每半个小时或10分钟去巡逻一次。有这个设备的话，它可以省去人工，而这个是一个好的点。第二的话是数据更精准，也不用就是每个人再去碰一下去确认一遍。
The traditional model of family care is becoming less feasible due to China's one-child policy generation entering their senior years. Visitor Yu agrees, saying there are simply fewer young people to care for the growing elderly population.
因为现在年轻人越来越少，老年人越来越多，那么很多这种智能产品的展示能够为老年人更好的提供更好的服务。
China's experiment with automation in elder care is a story we'll continue to follow as the country grapples with its aging population. And that's it for tonight's NET25 World News. From everybody here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.